Joining us right now is Dr. Naresh Trehan. Dr. Trehan, thank you very much for speaking to NDTV. My first question to you is, as far as the coronavirus spread is concerned, one of the major concerns that are being raised is that we perhaps in India do not have enough screening centers or areas or places, designated places where the screening can take place. Would you suggest in your wisdom that the government should open up the screening centers? For instance, invite private players in the process. Those who can pay should pay.
See, if you go by the experience of the world, there are two very stark examples you can use here. Korea jumped on very quickly on testing every suspected case so that they were screened early, they have been able to contain it, their death rate has been the lowest. On the other hand, you have Italy, which went through saying, no, we can't test, we should not test, there was a lot of delay in actually getting on to the job right away, has had the worst results, the most rapid spread and the maximum mortality. So this, if India was to learn a lesson from that, India with a much larger population than these two countries has a looming problem which may go totally out of control. So at this point, we should take every possible measure. But like I'm saying, we should be battle ready, that the phase 3 and 4 are on the doorstep. We should educate the public of what they can do, which we have been saying again and again about social distancing, washing hands and all that. There is no need to repeat that because it's been repeated so many times. And there are posters now the Health Ministry has put on its website. We can all disseminate those so that people know what the do's and don'ts are. But on the other hand, there is a large proportion of people who may have symptoms which may to doctors look like maybe coronavirus. Then we should not say till your symptoms develop into severe symptoms, only then we'll test you. I think that we have gone much beyond that stage when we first thought that it was contacts only or people who traveled from overseas. Now it's in the community. We know how rapidly it's spreading. Bombay is a very scary thing, how it's jumping on a daily basis. So now we really have to get down to brass tacks, believe that there is we are in the battle mode and we have a war to fight, and we have to do it collectively. We have to forget public, private, government, all those lines have to be blurred, and we must all jump on to say how we can get prepared for not only now, but the next steps that we expect the outbreak to happen in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So there has been some discussion between government and private players, and government is doing what it can. But see, it's not a battle only for the government to fight. It's a battle for all of us to fight. Every Indian must be part of that battle, part of that army that is going to fight it. So if we are determined that we will protect ourselves, follow the suggestions that we are being given on a daily basis, multiple times by different doctors, different channels, government agencies, we should take it seriously. What bothers me and worries me is that people are still not taking it seriously. They say, oh, panic. The question is not a panic. Panic is when you lose your balance. This is a question of being extremely serious, because when it happens, we'll regret it. Now, if it doesn't happen, it'll be the greatest gift India got. So we can celebrate. But till that time that we know that we have been delivered from this challenge, we should be absolutely on the alert.
No, Dr.
So
Trehan,
we know what we have said about
Dr.
the
Trehan,
gatherings.
from the manner in which you are speaking, some people would call you as a person who's cautiously alarmist. You're cautious, but at the same time, you're raising a massive concern which will be considered alarmist. When you say that we have to be prepared for phase 2 and phase 3, can you explain what these phases are? What does this mean?
See, phase 1 is when you have an identifiable group of people, like when we understood that people who came from countries which were affected, they came into India, they may have had, at that stage, if they had few contacts, we could actually track those contacts try to isolate them. So that's known as the containment phase. That is phase 1. Phase 2 is when it starts spreading into the community. So that one person who has not traveled abroad, may not have had contact, still has gotten it, and it starts spreading in a community. Phase 3 is when it starts, numerical numbers start jumping to a level where you say you are almost reaching an epidemic in our own country, and phase 3 and 4 get blurred there. So I'm saying now, if we have enough number of people infected, but the detection, because of the screening criteria are very strict and only can be done in a few laboratories, we may be underestimating the exposure that we have to this country. We are saying whether the government multiplies its testing centers or it seeks the help of reputed NABL certified laboratories to carry out the test in a very strict criteria, not random. But we should then be able to track the communities much better to see what is the real incidence and how fast it's spreading. Now, when they start getting sick, which will happen a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, and they have to be hospitalized, are we ready with the isolation wards? Now, one of the things that have been thought is being thought through is that should we get all the hospitals, whether government and private, to offer isolation beds in their hospitals. Now, if you look at again what China did, China built very quickly over 2 weeks several hospitals where all these people could be isolated. In India, one, the numbers may match that of China. Second, the fact that we should designate hospitals which become COVID-19 hospitals, whether they are in the government space or private space. But what we are realizing is there are many hospitals in the government space which have not been operationalized yet or can be emptied quickly into other hospitals and used as those centers. Now, there are not enough ventilators, there are not enough other devices available which we may need to treat very serious people, and the private providers have volunteered that they will actually contribute these equipments as and when required in whatever location they are. So, like ventilators, we've all volunteered how many ventilators we have, we should be able to spare so many, and all those things. So, like I'm saying, there should be no barrier to each other. The whole thing is, it's a national problem. You take it on the war footing, you'll feel like you don't worry about how much money is being spent as long as lives are being saved. And the fact that who pays for it will come later. And I don't think that you should worry about who's doing what, but we should be prepared for it.
No, but then would that not be a valid concern? For instance, that if someone were to worry about the bills, who is going to foot the bill? I'm sure a government will be concerned, individuals will be concerned. Do you think that factor should be at play in the mind of a government? For instance, from what you're telling me, it appears as if you're concerned about the underreporting of these cases as of now in India, which to my mind is far more alarming than containment.
No, it's, we don't know, but there is a very, very high index of suspicion that if you don't test enough people, you will not find out. I gave you the example of Korea. South Korea did a beautiful job of containing it. China, now if you look at it, 90% of the cases were in China and 10%, 15% within the rest of the world. The whole graph has reversed. The rest of the world has 90% or 85% of the cases, and China has 10 to 15%. So China has been effectively being able to control it. Now, it's a different matter that they infected the whole world. That's the tragedy. But we must learn from other people's experience and be on the alert. I don't think, I have attended some meetings with the private and the government sector. They're all very concerned. But I think that we need to jump on it a little harder than we are right now and not be complacent about it.
All right. Dr. Trehan, many thanks for joining us right here on NDTV. All right. Dr. Arvind Kumar is the chairman, Center for Chest Surgery and Chest Oncosurgery, and also the director of robotic and thoracic surgeon at the Institute of Robotic Surgery and at the Sir Gangaram Hospital. Thank you so much, Dr. Arvind Kumar, for joining us. And Ms. Shobna Kamineni, past president of the CII and chairperson of CII Services Council. also the Executive Vice Chairperson of Apollo Hospitals Enterprise Limited. Thank you so much to the both of you. Shobna, let me first come to you.
Thank you.
You know, as a person who's heading or who's the Executive Vice Chairman of the Apollo Hospitals Enterprise, how valid do you think is the assessment of a Dr. Naresh Trehan when he says that we're not screening enough, we're not testing enough, and we don't know the magnitude of the problem?
I listened to quite a bit of what Naresh spoke, and I think that he spoke great sense. But we also have to consider that, you know, a country like Britain, just today I heard that they're not testing at all. They've thrown their hands up and they said, you know, let's treat it as it comes, and maybe India's in that phase. But I do believe that we should, what he said about standing united, that we should throw open testing to private and public. It should not be so tightly controlled. That will help us actually manage it. So I'm in close agreement with everything that Naresh spoke about.
Now, what role can be played as far as private players in the healthcare are concerned? What role can they play, Ms. Shobna, in the process of testing?
So, you know, we've been working on this, Ankit. As soon as, we saw this from, you know, happen from China on, you know, in January. So I think a lot of the private hospitals have put certain protocols in place. When it comes to testing, for instance, I know that we tried a pilot here in Hyderabad today of trying the courier way, but all we can do is really check temperature, keep a doctor out there, and that would help contain it to that person and his car. But we still don't have permission, we don't have the kits to be able to test fully, and we have to admit them into the government hospitals, or there are a few teaching hospitals. So I think that the government is rapidly understanding the actual, you know, the seriousness of this phenomenon, and I do believe that you're going to see a lot of mind shift change in the next couple of days. So we're all prepared.
Dr. Dr. Arvind Kumar, let me get you in at this moment. What could be the possible reservation of the government? See, because time is of essence here. If I listen to Ms. Shobna or I listen to Dr. Trehan, both seem to suggest that time is of essence. Time is running out. It's fleeting. What could be their main concern for not getting everyone along?
I don't think there would be a major concern in not testing. I think testing is being done, but please allow me to shift the narrative. See, you have focused the entire narrative on testing as if testing is the only thing which is going to prevent the spread of this disease. And I would like to take you a step back and say that social distancing, physical distance, digital proximity is the answer. We are in the phase 2 stage where the contacts are transmitting, but a big scale community transmission has not yet started. My biggest fear is to see India pass from phase 2 to phase 3, because if that happens in a country like ours with our population density and our kind of health services. You know, in Italy, in the last 24 hours, more than 360 people have died. And I just learned from a doctor colleague of mine that they have now decided not to intubate anybody above the age of 60 years because they don't have ventilators to maintain them after they have intubated them. So this is the absolutely frightening scenario. I don't think if we reach that stage, we will be able to face or manage that. So my humble request is that the whole country needs to put its act together today in trying to contain it. And I think the only thing needs to be done is for next 15 days, I as an individual, as a doctor who has closely followed the development of this disease in China, rest of the countries, we need to go on a complete self-imposed quarantine across the country. If we just lock down the country for 15 days, I know it may sound very radical, economic consequences will be there, but life is of utmost importance.
And that seems to be something
If
that the
we
government
want
is
to
doing.
prevent
And since you
our
spoke about
country-
economic consequences,
Yeah,
very
so
quickly.
I would
Yeah.
appreciate,
Shobna
I
Kamineni.
really appreciate the way
Shobna Kamineni, I want to
the
bring you in at this
visa
moment.
were cancelled and all that.
Yeah, so a lot of visas have been cancelled. I mean, India has really moved forward as far as taking social distance.
So
And
I
it's
must
hard for Indians
appreciate that the
to
government
practice
has really
social
moved
distancing.
very fast on these measures.
Correct. And nobody is denying that there is a work happening at record speed. A lot of
But
people are
now
working
people
in
have
the
to
healthcare
go in
system.
a self-quarantine mode.
But
You know,
Shobna
I just
Kamineni-
heard the story about a big marriage function yesterday, which was
Yeah.
attended by 1,000+ people, and some important people also visited. These things need to stop completely.
Oh, that's significant.
Completely.
That's significant because, by the way, the parliament is still on.
No, but
it
Dr.
was-
Arvind,
Yeah.
I've actually seen half a dozen marriages here in Hyderabad that have been actually scaled down dramatically. So I do think that,
Yes.
and I take cognizance of
So
everything
I really
you
appreciate
say,
that.
we should be very serious
No,
about
Shobna
this,
Kamineni, one
social
word before I
distancing.
wrap this up.
It's very, very important.
Yeah, we were discussing about economic consequences. It's going to be catastrophic, but still, I think
Yeah.
certain tough measures need to be put in place. And that's what the country is doing.
Sanket,
Yeah,
no
but
economic
Dr. Kumar,
consequence can
don't
be
you
bigger
think
than
that
the
this...
loss of life.
Absolutely.
Yes. So-
Absolutely. I'm not building a case.
I think that what's important is that we as India should think one thing. Let's move this obsession of March 31st to finish this year. It would probably move by another quarter. So the government on an economic measure should see what they can do to actually help in terms of loan repayment, in terms of
Interesting.
how they're going to infuse liquidity and what we're going to do. And as a country, we'll hang on, and
So
from the
as a
business
short-term
community,
measure, you can take
everyone
all
is
those
backing
steps. I think
us.
that's a
Sanket, the
very
last
interesting
message.
suggestion. That's a very interesting suggestion, but however, towards the end, I just want to say that for a government which is preaching social distancing, maybe they can practice it themselves because the parliament is still on. And
Sure.
in the treasury and the opposition benches, these MPs sit really close to each other. So I don't think there's great social distancing
Can I
happening
make a last
in parliament.
sentence, Sanket?
Very quickly, sir. Running out of time. There's breaking news as well.
Sir, if we can lock down the country for next 15 days, trust me, we would have prevented India from going from phase 2 to phase 3, for sure.
Okay. All right. Dr. Kumar, as well as Ms. Shobna Kamineni, thank you so much for your perspective.